I'll call the Manchester Finance Committee meeting to order on Wednesday, March 13th. You need to pull up the Zoom, I guess. I have with me tonight Tom Parkins, Mike Pratt, and the old Peter Twain, Maury Creighton, Dean Hodges, Town Administrator Greg Federspiel, and Select Board Member and said. So the first item on the agenda is to go through the remaining operating budgets. I'll do my paper. I'll wait for Andy to get his electronic copy up. The first item is debt service. And I believe we had asked to have the expiration dates, the payoff dates of the various bonds. Is that correct? That's something you have to make.
Sorry. For that.
But
I don't have a handout for that.
Okay.
We do have it in the, that's the spreadsheet.
a page 204, so it's the outstanding debts. Oh, okay.
So they have the issue date, but not the expiration date, is that right?
Correct.
Expiration date is
So
certainly
that's
available.
the spreadsheet as on.
Yeah, you had sent us an updated something on January 31st.
I did, can we request for next year that the expiration dates be like, you know, in the same table, bonds here?
We do have a spreadsheet that shows them, they can send that to everybody.
It'd just be nice to see it all here, right? But in terms of like voting, it is what it is.
Right. Up to the, be able to get a sense of where they were going, so. See those differences.
Greg, am I looking for an earlier email of yours with this information? No, okay, I thought there might be earlier.
There was something,
I think I would give them the,
Rick sent this on the 31st. General bond debt outstanding.
well, that summarizes it in general, it doesn't list it by thirds. So, in fact, when I went to the materials from the, especially from the audit, it just showed all debt, indebtedness. And percent of total budget, etc. But it doesn't show each debt service and what each one expires.
When was that date, son?
January 31st.
There was 4 or 5 pages in a PDF. Yes.
And it looks to me like 7.3 million's outstanding for this year, 6.4 for next year, it goes down to 5.5, 4.7, 3.9, 3.1.
Which page is that?
I'm looking at a spreadsheet.
Spreadsheet there.
And yours.
I'm looking at this PDF and it's like roughly 6 million. 2023.
What's the date of
Right,
31st?
yeah, January 31st is when the email was sent.
Okay, thanks.
I think it's 7.3.
Does that reconcile with your spreadsheet?
My spreadsheet has the same number for fiscal year 23 through fiscal year 25, which is 7.260,575.
That doesn't reconcile with this. This shows 6 months.
So you have a few more years. Because ours ends at 23, we're looking at a PDF that Greg sent on the
Yeah.
31st. Which is the bottom number, 2023 was 5,195,082. Yes, this one. So do you have a different spreadsheet?
This is saying something different.
Is it something you proceed?
So what are you trying to get at? I mean, it's.
Well, I have this spreadsheet that shows total debt. And that's different from the PDF that people have.
What's total debt outstanding for the next $1 million? Sounds like this is 6 million, that's at 7.2.
Right, almost 7.3, yeah.
7.3, sir, is that in our book?
7.3 includes interest.
Okay,
The 6 number does not.
okay, so that's the difference, okay.
6 million is the notional principal and then you add in the interest.
Correct.
Okay. And it drops way off in fiscal year 33. And the last one is fiscal year 37.
Does anything mature in the next 12 months?
We do retire some small amounts. in 26.
Yeah, this is showing a drop of $1 million in fiscal year 26 from fiscal year 25. It's like, looks like it's dropping between, but is that just the difference in interest?
Well, I'm looking at just looking at my debt service. Give my-
Okay. So are we okay with voting on this budget? This thing is initially, yeah.
I'm abstaining from a vote if it has to be tonight, but I'm not seeing the information you're seeing. And, so we're talking about 24, 25, or 26 numbers, and I have a PDF of things that go as far as 23. You all have information to understand what we're talking about.
I think. And not that I can reconcile the math, but I think what Greg's saying is that 5,995, let's call it 6 million.
It's principal only. no
Right.
difference.
And then the 7.2 includes the.
And I'm trying to figure out where the 7.2 is in our book here.
It's not in the book.
Well, we're not necessarily voting on that. Yeah, right, we're voting on the stuff that's in the budget book. And I don't know if there's any difference.
I'm just looking for something close to 7 or something close to 5. That's in the budget book. I'm not finding it.
Well, I think you have to add up all the numbers in the budget book for each bond.
Okay.
I think that's,
All right.
but wait a minute, I can,
The more, I'm kind of with you, but to Andy's point, all we're really voting on, I believe, is debt service, is the debt, so it's that 889,710. Right, which is the interest that needs to get paid for this year, 25. Right? That's all.
yeah,
Page 204, right?
it's a fiscal year 25 is 972,220. Right? Wait, there's two different numbers. Oh. There's all funds and those. That's the debt overview, wait.
You can do the numbers, but each year, the total outstanding principal and interest is for the next 10 years. We don't have it. Yeah, I didn't realize that you wanted all of this for this evening, so I apologize.
Where's just the hard number of the amount of interest that needs to get paid in fiscal 25? Because that's what we need to vote on, right?
Interest and principal.
Interest and debt.
Okay, so there must be a separate page for debt service from the debt piece.
Probably. That's probably- I'm off, but when I add up the numbers that are on our pages from page 209. Sorry, when I add up from 205 to 209, I'm up with like 12.2 million.
Yeah, but are you looking at, some of them listed, I think more have been paid off. When I look at the summary sheet, there's a whole bunch of, when you,
Okay, so the
There's a
summary
whole-
sheet on 04.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
there's a whole bunch that was paid off.
Okay, they're the ones that the boroughs next to the base.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So,
Does that number be 889,710?
so
I don't know.
The total amount that is needed to approve for fiscal 25. Principal and interest is 1,003,727.
And where is that in our book?
It doesn't show.
okay.
And I'm sorry for that, but it doesn't show. I don't know why it doesn't show. I didn't realize that number was not in here.
What is the number?
So it's 1,003,727.
1003
No,
727.
727. That's the total debt service.
okay, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to say it again.
Yep. 1,003,727.
Yeah,
What's the principal amount of that total?
Principal is 755,219. Interest payment is 217,001.
oh,
001, yeah,
that doesn't add up.
30,000 for any anticipated borrowing costs. And then there's an admin fee to our sewer borrowing that came from the state of 1,507. So those four numbers come to 1,003,727.
And what's the anticipated borrow?
That would be the, if we issued a new bond.
Is that a definite for fiscal 2025?
No,
We're
it's
gonna
not.
start.
It's a possibility that we'd be issuing some of it. But we could also do bans. We could probably do, there's some cost for the bans.
I'll say I'm just struggling. I'm looking on page 204 and I'm adding up the things that don't have zero next to it for debt service. And when I add up those bonds, I come up with about 11.4. And somewhere between 6 and 11.4 is where we're landing, and I know interest isn't the delta there. So I'm struggling to try to figure out what we're. I think those numbers are the original bond amounts.
I do.
Okay, the principal is being paid down. It's being paid down, okay.
All right. What does the 889,710 at the bottom, page 204, what does that represent?
Sorry, I don't have all the details in front of me. This is the chart that Andy put together.
And she's not on the call.
I don't think she's on the call.
Because I was even trying to reconcile this table to Andy's, you've got your thing, but this is clearly your table has this
I just need you to
extra row, right?
So, what we have, I would suggest we put this on for a better presentation for you.
Which will delay the report. I can't do the report without numbers.
The number's not gonna change. It's that million for, that's what we own. So that number's not gonna change. I understand you don't have all the background to support it, but that number is not gonna change,
Subject to the 30,000.
except for the 30,000.
The 30,000, we could make zero.
That would prevent us from doing any sort of.
My point is, that's a flexible number. The other ones are not, right? We are forced to pay the interest. We are forced to pay the principal.
Yeah.
I forget the third thing.
There's a small admin fee.
Sure.
WPA,
Now the state, that's payable to the state, or that's.
WPA stuff.
It's part of the borrowing for the sewer.
Like, I'm fine voting on the pieces that are fixed in stone, which is the interest, principal, and the admin fee, because
Existing.
that is what it is. Or we can just push it.
And I've just forwarded everyone a spreadsheet,
Okay.
and the breakdown is on the spreadsheet.
Okay.
It shows 755, 219, the maturing principal. 21701 of long-term interest, 30,000 of temporary loans. WPAT admin fee 1507. For the total of 103,727.
You said it's 217,001.
Yes. And that is under this spreadsheet, under debt service.
That does not under this budget. Sure. That.
So the FY 2025 budget doesn't have any payment provisions for a loan, for future bond.
It has 30,000 for temporary loans /
It
interest.
does.
Yes, that's in here. It says for capital borrowing, short-term borrowing checks.
Is that 30 grand like a percentage of an expected notional amount of bonds? Is that how you arrive at the 30,000? I'm just thinking, do a lot of bond issuance in the private market, and it's usually based off of, there's underwriting fees, right?
Right.
And usually based off of a notional amount, so I'm assuming that 30,000 is connected to a.
Yes, I just don't know what, don't know what you use for assumptions.
That would be good to know. Right?
Imagine it was, I don't know, she probably did based on the full 9 million. Probably what we pushed them.
Can people who are on Zoom, please shut down your videos? Thank you.
I'd be fine with voting on three of the things, the interest, the principal and the admin fee. I'm not fine with voting on 30,000 until I know what the assumption is for the amount of blocks that he.
That would be 973, 727.
Sure you did the math, right? But I'll double check.
It's not used.
973, 727.
Six.
What's that?
Do we minus 30K from that?
I did. The original
Okay.
number was 1003727.
Right.
We take out the 30,000, we come up with the 973,727.
I make a motion that we approve 973,727 fiscal 2025 paid for principal due, interest due, and the administration.
Wait a second.
Sure.
Peter seconds.
Yes.
Any discussion? You ready to vote? Dean,
Yes.
Maureen,
Abstain.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Well, that was painful.
I only still have a caveat for my opinion.
We got that out of the way. Yourself.
Okay, so the next one up is employee benefits, insurance, and pensions. We're waiting for final numbers.
Second page.
No. It's. Find this, oh, it's on page 97. Probably 98, you could use it. I wish this table of contents were an alphabet order. Make it easier. Benefits, insurance, and pension. I have it right here on my hard copy. Would you like to share?
So this change from,
Pension number,
Yeah,
has been modified twice, for the final numbers. Is 1,744,942.
Say that once again.
Yep. 1,744,942. It's about 50,000 less than the original budget. And then on the insurance, health insurance number.
Yeah.
Is that dropped? So the final number there is 1,548,985. So 1.548985.
It's about 70 down.
Yes.
And that's obviously a budget for fiscal 2025, but I assume the revision down is because we got actuals for current that came in lower than budget, but
Where we have a lower enrollment in the program.
It dropped because we had, primarily because we had budgeted a 10% increase and it came in just over 5%.
I guess, let me ask my question a different way. When I look at fiscal 2024 budgeted, right, I see 147,1720. And I understand that fiscal 2024 is not over, but we are 75% through the year. So my question is, what do we expect actual for fiscal 2024 to be?
Yeah, that was in we did our last look at the 6 months. Just slightly to the good, slightly ahead, but not very much.
So maybe like 1.4.
Right.
On your casualty and liability insurance, that it might go up. For the coverage of the harbor. Is that something to throw $5,000 at or something?
The instance there assumes that you're adding marine coverage. You don't have, you don't, I hope to get the final numbers tomorrow. But we have additional costs.
So it's not.
We assume that $20,000.
I understand we added whatever, but did we add like a dollar? Like, meaning, you know, generally when you do liability insurance, you're insuring for 20 million or 10 million or 50 million, you know, there's some hard number. So my question is, did we actually up that number or no?
The premium just go up.
No, we added more coverage.
We did.
But I don't know what the value of the equivalent is. So they did an analysis on our harbor operation without the launch. And this is to pay for that. Now we're getting two numbers, we're getting that hard number in terms of addition, and then an additional number possibly for the launch.
I guess the two hard numbers I'm looking for is number one, what is on our general liability policy? What is the dollar amount that we choose, that we're covered for? You know, it's like a hard, like, you might pick 10 million, like, right? For me personally, I pick 5 million, right? And someone else might have 1 million. Companies pick 50 million or 100, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so Andy would have those numbers in their hand, but I don't.
Okay, but as far as you know, whatever that number is, we did not
change that.
increase that number.
Correct.
And I guess similar on the retention or deductible side. I'd be very interested to know what that amount is, and did you change that, keep it flat?
We kept it flat, different deductible for different incidents.
Sure.
The range is from 2 to 75.
Okay, that's insane. So we should be looking at running numbers with higher deductibles. That's insane. That's why we're paying.
To take a look at.
So the premium is the same, the casualty and liability premium is the same as budgeted in fiscal year 24, plus the 20,000 for
Right.
marine.
No, I understand, but I guess my question there is, did we just grab that 20 grand number out of thin air, or was that a number that came from a broker?
They said, we asked them, what kind of range are we looking at? They said it could be between 15 and 20. So we're putting the 20.
And that's all the more reason we should be looking at the deductible, because, right?
Deductible needs to be
If you
substantial.
think of the town like a corporation, with 40 million revenue, a 40 million revenue company does not have a deductible of 2,500 insurance policy. It's crazy.
So
I have a higher deductible than that on coverages.
Right. I
2,500 is around the cars, vehicles, and then the 7,500 is on property lawsuits.
So, to your point on the cars, that might be the max, potentially. But we should certainly then be exploring higher on the property and liability.
All judgment. So sure.
It's judgment and math, right? Because, you know, if you look at something like insurance over a medium and long term, right? What happens? You're saving that premium every year. Yes, every now and then you're gonna get dinged,
Right.
but you add up the savings over the years minus the ding,
Right, that's
990 99 times out of 100 you come out ahead. So like, we should ask the broker doubling that.
They give us those choices.
More than that.
Yeah, I mean, right, minimum, sure, absolutely.
I mean, that's deductible, I might have, and,
Yeah, I got 10 grand in my house,
yeah,
absolutely.
you know, I'm expecting a number that's.
I get 10 grand in my house and the town is 7,500. That doesn't make sense, right? So. I guess if you could ask, or you or Andrew ask the broker to give us kind of a mini table, right, that has, I don't know. 4 choices, 3 choices,
Yep.
whatever,
Maybe 50, 35, 75.
let the broker have a stab at it, right?
So we wanna hold on this budget.
Certainly on that number.
Specifically on that. I'm fine on the other stuff, right, like, I mean,
I think
You know,
this is 10%.
the pension is the pension, right, there's no. No variability, there's no negotiation, right? It's a hard number, you have to pay,
We're having that number.
right? So, you know,
To be clear, we're talking about the 155,000 here.
Yes.
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if it makes a $10,000-15,000 difference.
probably. My guess would be you can add the marine exposure. And the premium stays, right? If not a reduction.
Greg, what do you think the time frame is on getting information on this? Like a sort of trade-off between premium and deductible? And is it? Yes, well, that's the question, and then I guess the answer is, if it's gonna take a while, wouldn't we just roll the marine insurance into this and ask next year that we have a table?
I mean, I don't know who we use for a broker, but I deal with brokers all the time and that's a 24-hour thing. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
meeting with them tomorrow, I can ask them to get it for the next.
there you go,
meeting.
okay, good.
Just change
Uh-huh.
So would you like to vote everything but that number?
We can.
Well, something better than nothing, right?
So that would be.
Five.
45,297,129 minus 155,123. So we're voting on 3374712 and we're holding. Casualty and liability.
Different number.
Okay,
I mean, the bottom number down at the very bottom, amongst all the scratchings. Came to 3,684,712. And then if you pull out the 155,000. I'm coming up with 3.529, or 3,529,712. That's the contributory.
oh, I hadn't included the 155 in my number. So are you coming up with 3529712?
Yes,
Okay,
I need a second.
okay, and hold. Casualty.
I'm ready, one more, what's your number?
3,529,712.
Yep, I agree.
And that's with the 1.9 for the new number for contributory pensions.
It's the new number for pensions, it's the new number for health insurance, and it takes out the 155 for casualty and liability.
Correct. So
Motion.
I'll make a motion. We approve 3,529,712 fiscal 2025 for. The one,
Employee benefits, insurance and pension excluding casualty and liability.
Got it.
Second.
Hold on a second. You ready to vote? Please.
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Darren votes yes.
Deal about that.
I've got hen scratches all over the place.
I have more before we're done.
Okay. The next is animal control, and we were waiting for the number from Hamilton. It's page 114. One one five is the numbers. It's, yeah, it's a subset of police. I have it already in the paper,
Okay.
115 is the breakdown.
So what were we waiting for from, I've now forgotten.
The contract from Hamilton for, yeah. Professional services.
It's listed here as 13,250.
Right. And there was a new contract being written.
But the expenditure summary for animal control is 16,215.
Yeah, if you look on page 115, Maury, it's a
Yes.
breakdown of all the
Oh,
numbers.
got it, okay. So we're waiting for a different number for the 13,250.
I
Yes,
think that's right.
And at this point, I would just stay with that number.
Okay.
If it comes in a little higher, then we'll deal with it.
I'll make a motion. We're ready?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve 16,315 fiscal 2025 animal control.
So
take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
yes,
Peter?
Yes.
Andy?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
Tom? And Sarah votes yes. Okay. Okay, now we have voted on the DPW. But now there's a change to the OPM position.
Yeah.
Page 127, so we voted on, but I think it's coming from, it's broken down between budgets.
We'll put the full expense, 90,000 in DPW for that position. And then we increase the indirect in water and sewer, which will be a revenue source for the government. So the enterprise fund will contribute 60 of that money.
So the salaries will go from 947. 711 to
57.
10377. Plus the overtime. I mean, this would be 1037, 711, and then the 36. Would be total salaries and benefits of 1072711.
Lost me.
I'm at the top of the page.
Yep.
And for DPW salaries, I add 90,000 to come up with 1,037,711.
Okay.
And then there's a total down there that also includes overtime, so total salaries and benefits is 1,073,711.
Oh, you're just adding the 90 to the 983.
Yeah. And then the bottom budget, the absolute total, 52811 plus 90123 would be 1442811.
And on that revenue, the 60 grand revenue, I know, like it's connected, but it's not connected, I understand, but we vote on that 60 grand? Somehow, some way? The increased revenue from the
It's in
water
the
sewer.
funding source for the line, right?
So it'll show up as an expense, so we added 30,000 in expense to both water and sewer.
So it's handled within their enterprise fund.
So,
It's handled within their enterprise fund.
well,
So where is this 90 in going to be?
we expended out of DPW,
Okay,
Funding source would be.
the funding source will be taxation for 30, and enterprise fund revenues for 60.
So should our number like the 30 or the
no,
90?
we have to appropriate everything.
You gotta show,
Okay.
you gotta show the gross, you gotta show the gross here, it's a net earning. I'm just trying to figure out where, like conceptually, I understand the 60, I'm just trying to figure out like where in the book the 60 is.
So we would modify what you approved for water and sewer by having 30,000 to each of those in the indirect line.
Where, so like, where,
So if you go to.
So then
Let's finish up DPW.
we only increased DPW by 30,000. We're not gonna add 60 and 90, we only want to add total of 90 to the budget.
It's, that's the net difference, I agree. The water and sewer, the transfer to the general fund, that's 60,000.
we got it, like,
So the DPW salaries in this budget book include all salaries for water and sewer? No, so why would this be different?
Because we're showing this position in DPW, rather than splitting the position up between three departments. You could show it that way, it's more.
I just wrote something out to help conceptually people understand. Not that we would do this, right? We never take cash out of free cash for operating. But we could, right? Way to think about it simply is the 90 gross is the higher expense for DPW. But it's almost like you're grabbing 60 grand out of free cash. Okay. We're not grabbing 60 grand out of free cash, we're grabbing it out of the
Enterprise funds.
enterprise fund, but it's.
But my only issue, Mike, is for everything else, we're splitting salaries between DPW, water and sewer in this one.
No, we're not. So water's one, so the four guys, water's really different, because the two guys in water are 100% water.
Okay,
The four guys in sewer are 100% sewer. This one position is serving three different departments.
okay.
So
And-
we could put their salary in the three different departments. It's easy or administratively to have it come out of one department, but if
Now, when we do Chuck's salary, it's all in DPW.
it's all in DPW.
Do we get-
We do have some funds from water and sewer going into the general fund,
Okay,
well, so.
okay. So this is
So is another way
consistent.
of thinking about it, that the general funds throw off enough profit that we're essentially pulling the delta from expenses and income to cover these costs?
We're using enterprise funds.
Right, so I mean, enterprise funds are theoretically self-sustaining, so your income and your expenses in an enterprise fund should net out to zero or better than zero.
Right,
And are we pulling from the better than zero to fund the 60K that we're looking for this?
Those budgets have
Right.
30 left.
I have some answers, yes, right?
I would assume it's
I
yes.
absolutely.
We will,
We have retained earnings in both water and
we do
sewer.
every
Right,
change,
that's what retained earnings is essentially like.
Yeah,
but we will increase the rates a little bit to account for the additional expense.
Just at a super high level, how much is in those two accounts?
Retained earnings.
Sure.
Couple $100,000.
Couple hundred in each.
We had like 1.4 million. Yes.
So
big- big-
I'm all for raising rent, I'm just saying you don't even necessarily need to. But if you're just looking to pull 30 grand out, be,
Well, so sewer ran in the rent. Last year. The revenues did not match.
so how do we end up at plus 200?
We had more than that. We did.
Okay.
So
So then,
it was very tight because of, last. I should say that, last year. This past summer was very wet, so revenues are down. People were irritated. So it impacts the revenue.
so there's no question, in my mind at least, that you need to raise the rates for the sewer, because like you said, last fiscal year was a net negative
So-
number, you can't, right?
In fiscal year 24, the estimate in the sewer, retained earnings in the sewer enterprise fund is 501,000. In the water enterprise fund is just under 200. Um,
So
and
you're off by
for-
300, the good one.
for a total of 698, which is what it was at the end of fiscal year 23. And fiscal year 22 was almost 900. So we've been spending it down.
And these increase in rates in both will generate an extra, or just 30 grand for each to match what they need to contribute. Is that what you did? You back-
That's the other increases, but yes. It's around a 3% increase.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that the extra delta you backed into the 30 grand that each
Yes,
sewer and water needed to be able to contribute. So that all those being equal, just keep those accounts flat, yeah.
Will we see the sewer cost go down on this $4 million investment in the plant? We're no longer gonna use processed water, or we're gonna use process instead of town water? Or is it, we're not billing the town for the
your
water?
water in township.
Anyways, so it could be more.
What
I mean,
about
there should
the,
be some efficiency in terms of
Right.
pumps and.
what about
electric
the,
utilities.
what about the tanker that comes in? The water tanker, came in today, was there for 3 hours.
That's the sludge.
Oh, that's the sludge.
That's the money.
Anyway, it's not.
But sometimes I've seen a truck there that says water on.
A euphemism.
That's what they call it. That's.
No, Chuck's on it. Chuck was on it.
Here's Chuck.
Chuck, can you explain that to us?
Yeah, there is no water truck that's trucking into the sewer plant. It's all stuff that you
Right.
don't want. So yeah, that's for sure true. I will say all of those costs across the board, just like everything else, are rising. The disposal fees for that sludge that's getting sent off site, the chemical, all of that stuff is, all energy intensive stuff that the costs go up. So that's what we're trying to forecast when we forecast this budget, and the rates accordingly is, trying to make those offset the best we can. It's not an exact science because, as Greg said, we have, increase in demand or decrease in demand on things that are completely out of our control from year to year. So it's a best guess, and we have to try and make up for it, I think, more on a 5-year basis, running basis, or a 3-year running basis, but not year to year, because we'll just be chasing our tail and yo-yoing the rates, nonstop. But that was in when we pitched the idea of a meter fee on the water side, those kind of high level numbers that Mike was asking about, those are in that 8 or 9 slides that I sent. So that look back at that and it'll give you the high level numbers.
It's a truck that trucks dirty water to the plant.
No,
No,
it's taken out.
The other way.
We condense it as much as we can in the last bits.
It's a
Got it.
It was a nice shiny truck today, I know. The brand new
Not
truck.
only is it-
I believe Andy's had the tour, but you are all welcome to take the tour whenever you want. We will make the time. Come on down.
It's a really good tour.
do that.
Let's pick a day in July when it's 95 and humid.
Um,
So we settled on how we're gonna do this?
okay. So I think we need to have a motion to adjust our previous vote to increase the DPW salaries to $1,037,711 for a total DPW budget of $1,442,811.
So, yeah, or a second.
Peter seconds.
I think that's correct. I think the number you had above was 1,073,711.
Yes.
No,
No, you meant,
the salaries was $1,037,711. The total of salaries and OT was $1,073,711.
well, that's what I'm just saying is if you take 983,711 and you add 90,000 to it, I think you get 1,073,000.
Right.
You're saying it's 37.
Yes, I was changing the first line.
The salaries.
You're both right. Everybody,
Okay.
everybody,
Yep. Never mind.
everybody gets a trophy.
Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Well, I just, the 60,000, shouldn't that show as a credit here somehow?
It's in the revenue, it's in the revenue
It's in the
side.
revenue, it's not gonna show up in the budget.
Right, could we add the 90 here and then we're adding 30 and 30 to,
No,
it's
it's,
150.
no, it's 30, increase 30 in revenue.
Yeah, okay.
That will be transferred from water and sewer to the general fund.
It bothers me too. We have to look at everything on a gross basis, right? I
Yeah.
look at paying that parking part. I want to be able to see the revenue on the same page, to kind of net it, but they're like here and here.
Let's have a motion, second.
Yes.
Motion is made and second.
Okay, I'll take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes. Good, wait a minute. Okay, so now we're up to 1,442,811. Okay. Did that one. The next one is sanitation. Which should be about pages 34. Thanks, Andy. 136 is the budget. So somehow I have a note that we were holding the subject of bags increase. Does anybody remember what the issue was? Hey, oh, the pay as you throw bags went up 10,000. That was the issue.
Yes.
Because the actual for 2023 was 30,000.
I'm gonna say it's like 15,000.
Yeah,
If we compare budget with action. It's 50%.
We're on track to spend, I think it was 42,000 this current,
okay.
that's why we went to 45.
Is that just volume based or is it a increase in cost? You know,
It's a little bit of both.
the bags went up.
It's a combination, yeah, cost. Cost of plastic.
They're really good bags.
I mean, the volume side,
It's
not only,
variable.
what's that?
The volume side is probably variable.
No, yes, understood, but what I'm gonna say is the volume side is actually a net positive, right?
Positive in terms of-
In terms of, we charge residents to
But
buy,
we're bringing more money.
we charge residents, right? I go to the hardware store, I pay a lot for the bags.
Right.
The town is paying some maker of plastic bags a certain amount of money for the bags.
Right.
But the town's got a spread. Right?
Right.
So volume is a good thing, right? Because,
Maybe more.
right, right? So volume is fine, that's a good thing, it's just,
Meaning we have less going into
It's an
trash.
expense.
Except for trash costs.
Yeah.
To dispose of that bag, is costing us more. And we're,
Okay, but high level, what? We think the bags cover 2/3,
that, maybe half.
maybe. Okay. But yes, you jump to the next step. I'm just saying pure bags to
Pure
bags.
bag to bag.
Pure bag to bag, we make money. For every bag we buy or sell, the town makes money.
Correct.
Then you add in the next layer, higher volume, the higher the total cost, and you're saying we're only recouping half, so, yeah.
Yeah,
So we should raise the bag fees.
So do we want a motion for
Yes.
53,500?
Yeah, for sanitation.
And we had a motion. Second, 53,500 for sanitation.
And in seconds,
I'll second.
take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
So, Greg, on that point, like, you said it's 50%, like, let's say 50, but is that market? In other words, you know, if you looked at 50 towns that charge money, you know, for trash bags, is that about the ratio that a town should expect to recoup? You know what I'm saying?
probably pretty typical. Well,
Like, you're never gonna see 90 to 100%. But you might see higher than 50, I would.
right, so yeah, challenge becomes.
There's a limit before people start throwing their trash.
Yes.
License, right?
Yeah, but the carrot and stick there is the recycling's free, composting's free, so it's not a total club. Right?
And
You've got it,
textiles is.
you've got a carrot,
Yeah.
right?
Which can't go in the trash.
I mean, as no one believe me, you know, I have 2 in college, but when all 5 of us were home, I would have 1 bag a week. Because I recycle and I compost, I would have 1 bag.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it right, it's not trash.
That's right.
Chuck, did you want to say something?
It's just, yeah, I mean, I agree with Mike, but it's just not that simple. So we have fixed costs on the, you know, I'm not, I can't remember what the number Greg just said was, but you know, if it's 50 grand that we're collecting in bags, just the disposal fee to Wheelabrator is 100 grand a year based on our tonnage. The recycling and composting and all that kind of stuff is quote unquote free, but that's another line item in the budget. So if you're looking for the bag to offset, you know, just the disposal, that's different than like the curbside and all the money that we spend at the transfer station and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay, but
it's a little bit more complex.
At a bare minimum, the compost is free, right? Because I thought that's part of the deal with Black.
Oh, there's a contract.
Well,
We still-
it's
still pay.
getting there,
We're gonna get it down.
and
I'm
it
sorry,
doesn't
Chuck,
go
ahead.
up at least. Like it doesn't go up like with, you know, the other things. So it is more of a fixed cost. It's not escalating with all these other numbers, but it's still not free.
Mr. King.
That should be 0.
Well, I'd like to do it.
That's ridiculous.
I'd like to flip it and get charged full price for what we compost and then get rent for that land. Right, and see how the difference is, because I think we're getting a bad deal with that. You know, if we just paid full price for compost and got charged, I mean, that's different than what I said.
So the board's gonna be looking at the lease agreement.
Yeah, okay.
And we have a proposal that would get us down to 0 in a few years.
Like, next year?
That would be 1 year, I said in 3 years.
Well,
So,
if anybody wants help in the negotiation, I'm willing to help because that's ridiculous. Like, they're a profitable, for-profit business.
I mean, I would second that. I mean, when we negotiated all this a while ago, that was thought, but it is a for-profit business operating close to our water supply. And I know they've got a lot of precautions, but the town has risked it.
And it's not even the gross dollars, because obviously 50 grand in the context of a $40 million budget is not a big number. It's more the principle of the matter, right? On the principle of the matter, that number should be 0.
Okay, so,
I've made that same argument to them, and I'm more on that side of the fence. But there is another side to the coin, which is they are staffing the transfer station. It's not just the curbside collection; it's several other things. So you know there are more things involved than just the curbside collection and so on. So you know, holistically, I think we're getting a good deal. It will be a much better deal when 100% of the town is composting, or it's mandated that we compost like we recycle and all of those things. So this is more of a long term than a, you know, FY25 thing or 24 thing. So this is a long view project. It's been several years in the making. And so I don't think that it's right for us to, you know, go back on that now. That's always been the goal, and we've tried to, you know, kind of work both sides. So
Yeah, I take your point about staffing, but I'll bet you with all the money in my bank account, that if I looked at the revenue and the COGS and the EBITDA of their business, the increased cost for them to staff is like a fly on a gnat's, you know what? That's a nothing burger for them.
yeah, I mean, that could be, but you know, that's not what we're negotiating fully on. And they did spend a lot of money on the, you know, the different things. So it's not like it's been out of pocket to get them there.
Yeah, look, if we're locked into a contract, it is what it is. I get that. I'm just saying, whenever it's up for renewal or review or renegotiation, that should go to zero and not staggered. Like, that's ridiculous.
Well, again,
fundamentally,
there's things
it's
that we
a good-
can't discuss right now, but their revenue that you're discussing, that you're counting, is scaling up as well, and that's based on levers that the town gets to pull in terms of how much tonnage they can put through the facility. So like, these things have been accounted for, and I just think that it's not right to, you know, go back on that now or to, you know, dispute it in this fashion. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
again, if
something
we're
that
in
has
a
been taken.
contract, I get it. We're locked in. I'm saying the next time it's up for renegotiation.
Yeah, but that's
Just
20
now.
years down the road.
Yeah,
Down the
well,
road.
you should have now.
But she
I
said.
mean, we don't negotiate in public here, so I just think.
And I think fundamentally, it sounds like a good thing. The one thing I would just keep an eye on is how much business are they deriving from communities outside of Manchester using Manchester land? And I think when we originally put all this together, there were some sort of caps as to how much business or how much tonnage they were bringing in from other areas. And that's something I would just use in your negotiations to think about.
Yeah, that's still in there. I mean, I'm happy to, you know, talk with you guys about this. It's all been discussed and vetted.
I don't think our purpose tonight is to discuss a contract. The next budget to review is the rubbish collection.
Next page. Next page or so.
Which is a budget of $609,000. It includes the rubbish and garbage collection, and includes the Black Earth contract. And display.
That's the question we were waiting to respond
It
to.
was with respect to the Black Earth contract, which sounds like it's being negotiated, so that's not something.
So one of these two rows is Black Earth and the other row is.
No.
No.
Rubbish, garbage collection includes Black Earth plus Republic. AKA JR. And then disposal is, that's what the operative judge does.
It's based on the tons that Wheeler Raider burns.
And then the numbers above what the actual was in 23 by 10% or so.
Right, because when we switched to Republic, we actually got a better deal.
Yeah.
When Republic's existing contract ends, we will see that number go up pretty significantly.
Okay. So
This is my guess.
anticipating that.
Was that,
This is anticipating that.
no,
The tonnage rate, I have a note that says the tonnage rate is up 3% within the existing contract for this year.
Okay. Okay.
And Greg, this is for town and streets, public, but the town itself still uses waste management for its dumpsters.
yeah, we're using Republic for our dumpsters too.
Because we were watching the HAC hearings, there's a hills or whatever.
That's American Legion. American Legion has hills.
Oh, I thought they were doing the dumpster at the, never mind.
It
I
has a
thought it was
dumpster,
at the septic.
it has a
but-
dumpster behind it, and that's hills.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the things I get to see from my house.
So Greg, would you have fiscal year to date For, you know, 2024,
So for the 370,
yeah,
most of that, well, both of those numbers are locked in. That's contracted.
Okay.
So that the Republic number is a contracted number and Chris numbers is fixed number. So those are two fixed numbers, that 370 is fixed.
at 376, it's gonna come into that to the bank,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. And then the 235 is volume based,
239.
right, 235.
I'm asking about 2024.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't know, Chuck, do you know offhand how we're doing year to date?
No, not off the top of my head.
Yeah. So. I have to look that up. No,
How about this, if I assumed volume was flat? For the sake of argument. Did the rates,
It'd be up about 3%.
volume was exactly flat, it'd be up to.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think 3% increase.
The disposal cost for rubbish is for 5 years, and it basically the contract goes up 3. I thought maybe a couple of years it might have gone 3.5 or 3.25, but say 3. That's the disposal, and so we're roughly at this point 1,000 tons a year, which is $100,000 a year, and that's pretty dead on, except for the COVID year. And then same thing on the recycling is based on tonnage, the processing of the recycling, and so that is I think a little bit over, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little bit under, one or the other, but generally around $1,000 a ton as well, or sorry, $100 a ton for, you know, roughly $100,000. It's actually a little bit less. So it's, you know, 70-80 grand a year in recycling processing. So those are the rough numbers.
If I keep
And
volume
it does go up and down throughout the year for different things, like, you know, like spring cleanouts, and, you know, it's really just a curbside number, but it on an annual basis, it's pretty
Yeah.
close.
I'm staying at 30,000 feet, and I'm just making the assumption volume flat, which of course it will not be exactly flat, right? But who knows, could be up, could be down, right? Which is take an assumption, 30,000 foot. If I take that 202,676, to your point, I add 3%, right? I get about 209. So again, if volume was exactly the same, which I know will not be exactly the same, but just to make the high level, I can't imagine there's a ton of variability, right? I remember people in town generate saying like, it's just super high level. So it's just, just feels like that's high.
Yeah, well, and I would have to do more analysis on it. Even so, I don't know if I could explain it, but so the actual from 22 to 23 took a pretty big jump. Going from, we spent 168, 169, and then we spent 202. So there was a material increase in volume there.
So based on the second quarter report,
And you have it there.
yeah. Sanitation, composting, recycling, the expenses were, through half the year, were 61% of the full year. So we were 17,000 over budget. Through the first half this year.
And that's definitely for that row.
It's listed as sanitation, composting, recycling expenses. It's not the salary line, which is.
Does it have a dollar amount?
Yes.
Tie it back.
Yes, so this has, well, it's not everything, I guess. This has an original budget of 43,500. Actual of 26,557.
That's the sanitation.
Rubbish collecting, it says rubbish collection recycling, sorry. Rubbish collection recycling expenses. Original budget 370. Actual 135,600. We're under budget.
Well,
So we've spent 36.65 of the full year through half the year.
But it's not the 370, that, as Greg said, shouldn't be to the penny, it's the next row that I'm looking for. So we budgeted 235. So halfway through the year would be, what's half of that? 117,500, right? So
I don't see it.
It's just the row right below the 370.
It's not the row right below on this.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, well, here's disposal. Is that what we're?
That's
doing?
the
Yeah.
story.
Okay. 235, so the actual has been 97,000.
So it's
We
roughly-
spent 41%
So
for the first 6 months.
go back to my theory.
Are we talking about the dumpster disposal again, though?
No, we're
We have this
talking
conversation.
about the fiscal year 24 expenses for disposal, actual versus budget through end of
And-
December.
As I've said before, I think we are not getting charged for disposal of dumpsters, and so that has been carrying
Yeah.
through from budget to budget. We have not been getting invoiced for disposal of dumpsters. That would also be on that line.
If that's true, what's that number gonna be when it hits?
I think it's generally like 60 grand a year.
How much?
60.
60 a year.
Yeah, roughly. Off the top of my head, I mean, I'd have to look back last time we got charged, which might have been when we did have waste management, but
Future.
Right. Right, exactly.
What do you do with that?
Or is it 4th of July?
It goes into free cash,
There you go.
but we don't know if they'll start
It goes into free cash, and then if we spend it out of free cash, and then
and they don't.
the piper comes.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve
Yes.
the rubbish collection budget in the amount of 609,000?
Yes.
Rubbish.
You have a second.
Okay. Maureen moves, Peter seconds.
Right.
Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Okay, so that's. Um. 14. Okay. Streetlights, and on the streetlights, we were waiting for. We had a question, it's our understanding that Danvers is doing
Okay.
141. The numbers are on 140. It's a $55,000 budget.
And what did Denver say?
They don't charge by the hour, right? They charge by half a day or a day.
yeah, it's a full day rate. Full day.
I guess our concern was the actual for 2023 was 28,000.
Right.
And we have a budget this year for 55,000. And is any
Yeah, but the
maintenance
issue
being
is
done?
that we haven't been able to address the underground issues. Like Danvers has been coming and addressing the overhead and the the different things that they are allowed to touch. We need underground support from National Grid, and that's just always going to be difficult. So, and it will be expensive. It's just we're not getting the response. So we're hopeful that we will in FY25, but that's why it hasn't been done yet.
So if we were to look at fiscal year to date, what would we see?
We have not had National Grid in today.
Street lighting year to date. Fiscal year 24 budget of 60,000, actual 5,000. 8.41% of budget in the first 6 months.
Other than is we have accumulated a significant amount of credit based on the amount we have paid to our solar farm. So we're pausing the solar farm purchases because our credit is too high in National Grid. So we're
I
having,
don't understand.
I don't understand that either. What's that?
so we're not, so we've got a huge credit with National Grid. Right?
We have a huge credit on National Grid, which means like they owe us a check,
It's not gonna give us.
but just high level. They owe us the check, money, credit, whatever. Okay, so then go to the side.
So we have had to pay out on the street lighting to grid because of the high credit, so that 5,000 is artificially low. In terms of total expenditure.
Is the national grid road, that street lighting road, which has the 35 and 30?
Correct. That's the cost of electricity for the lighting, and then the other line is for repairing the lights. And that's the one the Chuck was just commenting on, some of that work we're dependent on grid to do, and they were just so backlogged and not getting.
Sure, I'm not gonna come at the maintenance part, I'm gonna leave that over here, but I'm coming at that top road. If I use your logic, we got this huge credit.
No, what's the first line that says street lighting for 30,000?
Electricity for street lights.
Okay,
And with.
Right, but what I'm hearing, unless I'm understanding it wrong, is like we got such a huge credit that we don't think we're actually gonna pay money to National Grid in the near future, right?
For the rest of this year, we talked to grid, but starting up again in fiscal 25. We will.
We're just literally gonna start July 1.
I also don't, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, but that credit is not, it's account based, it's not like town based. So even if we have like a huge credit at the wastewater plant, it's for the wastewater plant account, not for the streetlight account. Is that accurate or is it different?
Yeah, it's segregated by account. I'm making
Yeah,
the assumption that because of that low number to date on street lighting, that we probably have we have some credit there as well. But I would have to look at the sheet to see it by account.
I'm fine keeping it apples to apples and saying this is a separate account. I'm just saying, high level, we got a big credit, which is good now.
Right.
And I don't understand, like, the number was whatever, it was 5,000, fiscal year to date.
Right.
I don't understand why we need to be budgeting 30,000.
Because we won't have that credit for the new year. We will have exhausted most of that credit by the end of this fiscal year.
So literally the timing's gonna work where the credit goes to zero on June 30th, and then after that.
No, I can't, I'm not
You know
saying.
what I'm saying? Like, I'm just, when I hear big credit, I think big, and I'm just thinking,
Oh, yeah, it's
oh,
25.
wait a minute, this is a $55,000 purchase. How many hours we can spend on 55,000?
Right, it's a $35,000 line item. We've only spent 5,000 halfway through the year. And I was explaining why we've only spent 5,000 is because of the credit that we have in that account.
Which will be roughly exhausted at the end of this fiscal year.
So, yeah, so we're anticipating the need to spend the 30,000 next year.
Because we paused on the solar.
Correct.
Why did we pause?
It's getting way out of whack. We'll never catch up. We're spending too much money to the solar company.
Oh, I see, we're paying them.
Yeah, we're paying the
Okay,
solar company. I want to stop paying them. And use up the credit we have. Sort of readjust the whole thing. They were selling us too much electricity.
Okay.
That was the fundamental problem.
to answer your question, right, within the context of a $40 million budget, this is a small account. My problem is, it's 20 grand here, it's 30 grand there, it's 15 here, and it's tons of these little cats and dogs. But we know what they all add up to.
Right.
Right?
Right.
They add up to a big number. It's a big number.
Do you want to modify the number? We'll make a motion to modify the number.
Would you be comfortable with 40K for this?
I'm willing to come at things more high level. I'm willing to come at it at the 30,000 foot view. So in other words, I'm willing to not fight about every little cat and dog account, as long as then when it comes to the revenue side, we can kind of do the adjustment there, right? That's how I would approach it.
But we have to operate also on the first floor level too. Above and below. So if you want to see a smaller number then.
I mean, short answer is yes. Long answer is, again, I'm willing to negotiate on the higher level revenue side, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? In other words, dollars is dollars, right? It's all fungible, right? We all know, it all ends up in the same place. So I'm willing to concede this, but then when we talk about the revenue, that's where there's the 20 grand here and the 30 grand there and the 10
So I
grand.
suppose we have a motion to accept this as it. If
You see what I'm saying though, right?
I see what you're saying, but we're dealing with expense at the moment.
Right, but I'm saying, are we in principle agreement to kind of,
We haven't gotten to the revenue yet on the agenda.
Yeah,
no,
On the agenda.
Right, but
When we
everything's.
get to revenue, let's discuss revenue.
Expense. I agree with your point, yes.
So do I have a motion for 55,000 for the street lights?
Yes, you have that motion.
Have a second,
Second.
Lori seconds. Take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Okay. Now we have a whole bunch we did. Okay. Now we had a question on the Manchester Essex Regional School District debt number. We were waiting for an answer. The numbers were different. They didn't know what the right number was.
So I know that, Andrew was waiting for stuff information. She, the number that they had shown. The documents. That they showed us, that they approved, is that
2729630 is what we voted. The budget book had 2720917. We took what the school department gave us. But there was a question because there was a $30,000 number kind of below and it didn't. So I guess we'll wait on this. I mean, we voted on it. And I had a note that we were going to revisit the amount this week.
2.729.
I'm not sure is. The voter in February was 272962.
63. That's what we voted on. Okay.
No, we have 2720.
What? No, that was in the budget book. We
Right.
voted on 2729630 on 3620.
Okay, so that was.
Keep that in for now until it must be tell you otherwise next week.
Okay. I guess the rest is capital. No, we have non-appropriated expenses. Which is page 20. The amount of 190,616. $190. You find it, Andy? You had it 5 minutes ago, right?
Is that motor vehicle park surcharge? Stabilized, it went up a lot in the last accident. And we just folded. It's- 190. Oh,
Motor vehicle park
Yeah,
surcharge.
the park surcharge,
What is that?
it jumped quite a bit and then we.
The 23 actual was a 5360.
Right. We anticipated 35, so
Let's jump up.
Right,
These are bills we get from the state.
yeah, so it's just. Whatever they say.
Yeah, it is. We held them flat, we should have
Yes.
sold otherwise, but
We have no information
it's a bit of a guessing here.
to know otherwise.
We even know what it is.
It's to do with, RVs. Operation vehicle, infantry.
It's a lot of those.
How does the MBTA fee get calculated? It's just, the state just says,
I don't know how they calculate that number. It's, yeah, it's good. It's ground slowly. So,
It's been like 100,000 for 10 or 15 years.
Yeah,
It doesn't change much.
when I first got here, it was like 110.
Yes.
so I bring it up just in the context of, you know. When you want to answer the high level question, how much money do we get from the state every year? Right, you net this in, right, and it's like. Peanuts. Peanuts. It's nothing. On the annual operating side.
For that, for example, we do not get very much state money, no.
I mean, to be clear, not very much. When you net this, we're talking like 100 grand. Because I think we get gross like 200 or 250.
Road, that's 150.
What's that?
150 for roads.
We're getting more than that this year. We have done the next
They
year,
get, something,
94 or something.
we get another 74.
So
Whatever. I'm just making a point.
Chapter
that-
70 is our biggest one. It's schools. That's 3.2 million.
Yeah, but that's the school district. That's a separate entity. I'm talking about the town. And all I'm saying is, it's nice to think about gross numbers, but you should think about net. That's part of the net calculation.
Should we secede?
What's that?
Should we secede?
Oh, we should get rid of it.
I took the train into Boston for many, many years, and I moved to Manchester because we had commuted.
And worst case, if you had to go to Bed Farms or West Wash, it's not the end of the world. And by the way, after post-COVID, what % of people are working from home versus commuting to the office 5 days a week? It's way low.
I know from somebody, well, maybe others take the train here on a regular basis, but Sarah goes in once a week or twice a week to Decam, and very frequently now she's hooking it to Beverly. Because the Rockport train is doing this, or doing that. It's like,
Because you double your chances.
she just drives.
Right.
I don't think we need to discuss at this meeting,
We're not gonna.
getting rid of the MBTA.
No, I just wanna highlight,
I'd like to
I just wanna
finish the
highlight
meeting.
that number because it's a number that we have to pay out, and I just wanted to be known that there's a net cost.
If we should keep our ears to the ground, if there's ever a motion to, charge communities to help bolster up the MBTA. And being in a community that has ability to pay, we're.
Okay, that's not a subject for tonight.
The concept is crazy. It's like, I'm sure when they built 128, they had to do eminent domain and say, okay, we're just taking this land, building a highway. And then on top of it, it's like, oh, and by the way, you gotta pay $100 grand here, right? It's just like, the concept doesn't make sense. We built this.
No,
We have to.
do I have a motion to approve 190,616 for non-appropriate expenses.
So moved.
And you have a second?
Okay, let's take a vote. Dean,
Yes.
Cory,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Sarah votes yes.
We've got about 300.
What's that?
We've got about 300 on the town side. 300.
We net 300? I always see that. That's what we're trying to get.
Let's,
That's not.
Let's keep going.
You'll see it in your revenue.
okay, we have, an opioid funds vote to take, which is in the amount of $8,892 that apparently it came in last year, went to free cash because the state hadn't given us what we needed to do to create a special account, special revenue account. We can't spend the money unless it's in a special revenue account. So we need to vote to approve appropriate $8,892 from free cash to a special revenue account for opioid funds.
It's not, that will be used.
So I have that motion.
Second.
So moving.
So,
So this is an accounting thing, right?
yeah,
We're moving it.
Nothing in the book, it's just Andrea will create an account.
right. Another,
So it'll be used for some minor program to help with.
Do we have to appropriate for use?
yeah,
The account to go to the Board of Health.
It's going into the opioids, special account, and then we can spend from the.
Got
The new opioid speech will go into the special.
Can you go to Board of Health?
So they will help with. They will help and police them. The work will be done.
so I'll take a vote, Dean,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Peter.
Yeah.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tom, so, yes. Okay. So all the rest is capital. And where's my agenda? Fingers are caught in my paper pages. So I can find my space. So we're supposed to be revisiting, oh, we did the NESD capital budget for that payment. Next is fiscal year 25 revenue projections. Before we get to the capital. budget. It's on page 54. Fifty-five. Okay. We ready to discuss revenue?
It looks like, do we have a 3.3% tax increase? So,
What are you talking about?
well, the property tax went up 3.3%. So I guess that's normal.
That's 2.5 plus growth. So 2.5, I assume the 2.5% tax hike plus movement.
So that might go up. For capacity.
If I can just throw out some numbers. I mean, you know, at a high level, there's goes into and goes out, right? There's all kinds of expenses, there's revenues, there's forecasts on both, right? But here's the net result at the end of the day, right? For fiscal year 2023, we came in 1.1 million higher. 1.1 million cash. Above and beyond, right? Fiscal 2024, 840 grand. Right, we can do multi-year averages, but no matter how you slice and dice it, it's a big number, right? And that's, you know, that's a compilation, right, of all the expense accounts that come in lower than budgeted and revenue accounts that come in higher than budgeted, right? And that's, you know, that's your net result, right? And, you know, I understand any forecast is, you know, not perfect, it's not gonna hit the nail on the head, but clearly, we're being extremely conservative on both sides, right, on estimating revenue and expenses. So to me, it's like, okay, if I'm not gonna die on every hill on all this $50,000 budget, 40,000, you know, then this is the place to, you know, make the high level adjustment on the revenue side.
I think it's especially important in a year when we're thinking of spending interest for money. If we're sitting on money, yeah, we're gonna take a bond, spend interest on money. But that's a very important thing. to Look at.
I mean, to me, at a high level, like, it's 200 grand. Increment. Now. If I had to get in the weeds and had to say, okay, where would that 200 grand be? I mean, obviously, one row would be investments, right? You know, 235 grand actual fiscal year 2023 versus 35.
Okay, so Greg had something in his email today. About interest income.
On the first page.
So it's been highly volatile because of the way that we have been required to book unrealized losses. Or unrealized gains. But that's why that has fluctuated. So there's still some debate, but the state has stayed the same, that going forward, you don't have to net that out from your interest rate. You can just claim your interest rate. And auditors are still arguing about that.
Well, that's actually sound accounting, like, that's a regular accounting, Chris.
Right.
Right, you get your unrealized gains and losses over here, and then interest, those are, yeah,
Two different buckets.
completely different.
Right. So in the past, the state has required us to merge those two. So they are now saying differently, you know, we're having some arguments with well, some of it.
They're getting their act in shape now. They're moving towards the problem account.
So, you know, assuming we have that 4 million fund balance, free cash plus stabilization. Conservative 4%. That 150.
Yeah, but. Couple things. Number one, that 4 million. The real number's higher, right?
Yes.
Because that's the number we targeted. But it's always higher, right? Part of it is just budgetary estimates and part of it is timing. Right?
Well, no, there's other funds too. I think that's the issue, is you've got the retained earnings for water and sewer. Which are earning,
All sorts of funds. So
Yeah.
okay, that's even an additional.
and we used to have the fire apparatus fund, but we spent that down.
Mhm.
We have like 400 grand left from that.
But I'm assuming you're gonna step down with fund balances
Right.
to the 3.3 level.
But again, the part of it's timing. Part of it is estimates, right?
Right.
We have always had a higher cash balance than we targeted. Right? So even if we're targeting X, we always come in high. So, you know, that's gonna add. To the interest income. Because you're getting interest on actual, not budgeted, right? You're getting interest on actual. So, like, again, I'm just looking at, you know, these huge end of day variances. Total budget, right? 900 grand, $1 million, right? And, you know, conservatively, there's 200 extra grand. Now, you know, you gotta get in the weeds and gotta say it's 100 grand here, 200 grand. Okay, fine, but I prefer to keep it simple and just say like, you know, up the investments to 200. And then up like motor vehicle taxes 50 grand and call it a day. You know what I mean? That to me is a lot easier than like saying, okay, investment should go up to 142,000 for real estate, you know what I mean, like.
So in 23, the actual local receipt was 2.5 And right now, it's just like the budgeted estimated receipts for 25 is 3.1 cents. So you can say you got a built-in cushion of 400,000.
I would think.
I
we
mean,
could easily go
that's
for
the revenue side,
That's the revenue side.
right? So clearly with my
Well, we're
numbers,
talking about revenue right now.
But he's gonna say, if you're gonna save another 200,000 on expenditures,
right, if the combined estimates and budget forecasts for both revenue and expenditures combined, each add 400 or each add 500, which that's what the numbers show, then yes, there's 400 grand on the revenue side, but there's another 400 grand on the expense side.
that's a certain swing grand on the expense.
There has been, I mean, that's the actual data.
There has been at times.
No, not times, every year for the past 5, 6 years. It's right here. This is from Andy. I'm being conservative to say 400 on each side. It's actually more. But let's go with 400. So if you got 400 on the revenue, 400 on the expense. I'm saying take 200. So I'm saying take 25% of that 800.
So you want to increase the revenue assumption by 200,000, is that what you're saying?
Correct. And I don't really care whether that flows into investment or excise, you know. If you had a gun in my head, I'll certainly pick which bucket to put it in, but I don't think you care either, right?
Does the state have to certify the revenue, estimated revenues?
Yes.
Okay. Now what about if we were to get a permit fee,
But you're gonna see a one-time spike. That's through the roof.
well, actually, the permit fee is about the same as the property taxes. So it's not a one-time spike, because you might have a permit fee in one year and property taxes in the next, so it's
It's different buckets.
yeah, different buckets. But that is based on what they did Monday night. That should hit the end of 25, right? Isn't that what they were talking?
Yes.
I mean, the whole project has gone further out.
Right.
Because they're not gonna be completed now to the end of 27.
So next fiscal year.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that,
So do you think it's
Permit fee.
Q4 25 or Q3, or do you think it's like tail end of, is it like June?
no,
Or
I
do you
don't
think it's
think,
like
I
March?
can't remember what was on the slide last night, Monday night. But they are doing, of course, it depends on the planning board approves. And then they're doing site work 24 into 25. So I think it's fiscal year 26, those permit fees are.
So do they, the minute they have equipment on site and start doing stuff, what would you guesstimate is the percentage of
They
permits due?
don't do permits for groundwork. The first permit is for a foundation. Building permit, and then you go to building the building. But you don't get permits for the groundwork.
Let's assume they get a permit of the approval site plan approval by the summer.
Right.
They'll use summer, fall, and next spring to do site work and utilities.
They have to be working on the project before December of 24, where the variance expires. But they don't have to have the building permit
So
based on the
that's-
way we did our decision.
That's 9 months from now, they have to be doing something.
Have to
on
be
site.
doing something on site. But we didn't make it contingent on actually issuing building.
So this revenue could be not in fiscal 25, but 26.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
So it just means we don't have to think about it.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
figure out.
So if it does happen, it all flows to free cash, and then we're having this discussion.
No, unless we, no, unless we increase our revenue, our new growth assumption, our revenue assumption.
No, I think
Just
what-
your
I think what
grade.
I'm saying, if it happens, if it happens.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
If it happens earlier than expected, that's where it's in.
This discussion next year, we'll be talking about free cash.
Right, if it happens earlier than expected, then it's not in the budget.
That's dropped into free cash because of timing, and that's,
Right, but if it's.
that would be nice, but that's unlikely.
But,
If it's unexpected.
right,
Yeah, yeah, we're not gonna, that's.
you can't. If you get more revenue than expected during the year, you can't spend it because it wasn't included in the tax rate, okay,
That's appropriate.
unless you have a subsequent town meeting.
So is it as simple,
You know, for what we're, Michael should talk about it. For a while, thinking about it the same way, to simply adjust.
Yeah, exactly.
The $200,000 higher.
Right, so instead of 3,160, 700, 3,367. In fact, I'll make a motion on that if. For folks up.
Go ahead.
I make a motion for fiscal year 2025 for total local receipts to be the number of 3,363,700, with the additional 200,000 to be allocated in whatever bucket the town wants to put.
I'll second that.
Vote, Dean,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Yes.
Don, Sarah, yes. Okay. No. We don't normally vote on that. Just because he was asked if we had to vote on transfers, and I said, no, we don't normally vote on revenue, it's just because we wanted to change, but we did. Okay. Now we get to the funding sources and amounts. Greg's email.
Yeah, right.
So we wanted to understand in the capital budget, there are funding sources. And we had asked for adjustments. One of the things raised was how much do we increase the tax rate? Decrease the bond. I did do some calculations. I took the median home value of $1,051,000 and calculated impact of tax increases. I did 2.5%, 3%, 4%, and 5%. 2.5% would increase the annual taxes by $246 or about $20 a month. 3% would be about $25 a month. 4% would be about $33 a month, and 5% would be $40. So that was for an annual range of, $245 to $500. I just thought that would be helpful when we're talking potential tax rate increase.
Not to complicate, but what we did on the revenue, obviously is gonna adjust things by the 200, right?
Yeah, a little bit more.
When we'll just spend. Or what, you know, or,
And if I think how much I'm spending, it's.
A little bit less smiling, I mean,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
different ways of looking.
Okay.
I think, I think we need the global picture of how you wanna fund the school feasibility study. That's a big number. And, I was showing the drawdown of the fund balance with other areas. I was suggesting a memo to you today that the feasibility study perhaps is a capital exclusion. Which would in effect raise tax rates 2%.
2% so, yeah.
Real nice. So if you did 2.5 plus roughly 2 for the, little less than 2 for the feasibility study, then you got an effective tax increase of 4.5. And then the other areas would be paid for by drawing down almost $1.4 million. Little slightly higher than we tried.
The drawdown is higher than the target or the resulting balance is
The resulting balance would be a little lower than
so instead of 8%, it's 7.7.
7 slightly.
so how much is the feasibility study? 660?
660, if it's $1.5 million for the feasibility, which is what the main total to budget. Then our share would be 6.
They were given a range.
They're given a range of 1.2 to 1.
1.5.
And they were told this budget for the
660.
Andy, what's the range of spending what's the timeline?
The feasibility study itself.
Yeah,
I think it happens, so it varies.
I mean, it's gonna be time and materials rather than a contract, I mean, so it's not like they have to appropriate the whole thing in advance. Because it's not a fixed rate contract like it used to be. It's time and materials,
and,
so over what span would it be
I'd say,
from this fall,
yeah, well.
from the 280-day period or whatever?
Because it tends to all work toward developing a design that gets budgeted and then goes before, goes to.
Right.
Most of those. For those kinds of projects. But, so I don't know when this one starts, but, it could be for our April town. I'd say about a year.
So, sir, are you asking about the feasibility study spanning a couple of years and paying for it over a couple of years?
Yes,
'Cause
or why budget 1.5 million if it's only gonna cost 1.2? Is, I mean,
I mean, it could, I think what we talked about is it could span a fiscal,
right,
but it's not gonna take 2 years.
right, but we're not starting until the fall, right?
Like with the fire engine, they want to see the full amount.
But this is different, this is different, that's a contract going out
Yeah.
to purchase a piece of equipment. This is being done on time and expenses.
So it's not a contract.
Prior school budget building was a fixed contract.
Right, okay.
but what I don't know is if SBA requires, proof of progress report by having the balance appropriate.
That is part of the whole
But,
process, yeah, no question.
but it's arranged, I wouldn't go the high end of the range, certainly is what I'm saying. If the range is 1.2 to 1.5, I wouldn't.
So 1.2, you'll save 100,000.
At a bare minimum, I agree with that, but, I would also push back on the SBA support, like clearly, even if. Like, in other words, obviously, we're good for it, right? Like, I mean, and if it crosses fiscal years, we're just doing a budgetary thing, like. That to me seems like that'd be pretty shameful if they put that, so we don't support it because. What path in one fiscal year have, like, I mean, we're just trying to do a budgetary strategy.
But I don't know what their specific requirements are, but their requirements are rather, they're perfunctory. You know, it's like, you know, they're not gonna talk to us and say, yeah, you're good for it. You know, they wanna see you.
Well, but there's more than just we're good for it, I'm saying, you know, if it goes across fiscal years, and there's a way to, you know, bifurcate and say, okay, you know, half is budgeted this, like,
Yeah.
that would seem, you know, we actually did this, but, you know, but then they go, well, you didn't budget 100% right away, it's like, well, we just budgeted half in this year and half in the next year. And
We also have another crack at the pie in November.
I think there's a meeting on Friday, right, for this project, and so ask that question.
But at a bare minimum, I agree with that, at least of 1, 2.
So, okay, so we will hold off on the feasibility study as far as.
Lady, what's the question that's gonna be asked on Friday?
So I'll ask whether, you know, for whatever that figure is, let's say it's 1.2. Does each town need to make a full commitment to them for their share in that?
Yeah.
Upfront,
And what the date
or
is.
change the span.
Right. And the timing element also is a question. That is.
When it starts, yeah.
Definitely save budget on the low end.
Yeah.
You can get rid of that, then correct in the subsequent years.
Exactly.
Kind of system, high level fundamental question, like, talking about deciding on the tax rate, but the way I thought the math worked was, we decide how much we're gonna spend. And then look at the revenue, and we kind of back into the rate, right?
Yes, but we have to decide what we're doing. We have to take the tax rate increase into account when we're deciding this huge capital budget. And whether we want to be lower on the amount of the debt we incur.
I understand, I'm just saying, like, it's all connected and it's just,
Yes.
so I guess. I'm just talking out loud, that's all I'm doing. And I guess all I'm saying is, in the same vein that we're talking about what tax rate, we're almost effectively deciding. How much to spend on CapEx, is that kind of the,
Yes.
those are the levers,
Sure.
is that fair to say?
Sure.
Okay, because we locked in operating,
Right.
right? As of tonight, we locked in operating, we locked in revenue. Think, right? Other than, subject to the,
Other than that,
subject to the percentage tax increase, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so the
Yeah.
only variables left is the tax rate increase and capital. Yeah,
And the amount of bond.
Well, we haven't, there's a DPW capital that has a lot of work. As far as, the 5 million in design. That we're gonna bond. I don't see why we need to design the PFAS at Gravely Pond this year.
Well, I think that he said in his email, we take that out because we're getting 900,000
So
from the federal government.
it's 1.8 million. And then we just got half of that. Of the rest.
So we could use that for the PFAS, Lincoln Street, where we have problems. Just to keep going on this line of the capital, I still haven't seen any definitive evidence why we need to line the sewer, the water pipe on Pleasant Street. I know we want to pave the road, but I think we should consider that pipe is good for another 10 years and we can pave it without doing it. Fine. Okay, the 5 million design cost
What 5 million you were referencing?
is in the
It's
capital.
4.1 for plant upgrades.
Okay. So a lot of that was in the PFAS. And
1.8 was people.
Yeah, you've got to break it down, Dean. You're
Yeah.
being way too, you know, it's the water plant design was 2 million. Water pipe replacement was 2 million. Water truck was 50, water meter replacement was 1.5
so the,
for 5.5.
right, so I'm saying that the Pleasant Street project, we might be able to get the line. I'm saying.
So I'm saying you want to reduce the line item for water pipe replacement?
Yeah, we can do that.
And how much do we have left over from last year, Greg? That was one of our questions. We had budgeted 1.8, I believe. And we didn't do Pleasant, we did Buck the Road instead.
I forget that number. Chuck still with us. I want to say it was maybe 400.
You thinking reduced by how much?
Well, this was 1.8, I think, that's for Pleasant Street.
Just from, sorry, from what to what?
Let me go into I was talking
We
general,
got 2 million for presents.
yeah, so, but we still need some, we want to resurface it because of the detour.
But that's,
Okay, well,
Not
that's
this
what I
one.
think is driving.
that's road resurfacing.
Right, but I think that's what's driving this Pleasant Street, and I think we're borrowing money to do something that can wait. That's the issue.
I think the issue is not Pleasant Street or anything else. The
Right.
question is how much do we want to spend on water pipe replacement?
I'll
It's
say,
not us to determine which pipe is replaced.
I'll say broader than that, it's CapEx. Right?
How much you want to spend on CapEx?
Correct, that's right, like, there's a ton of things with flowing CapEx, it's pipes, it's this, it's that, right? And I think we need to make a high level decision that we're gonna spend this amount of CapEx. Right? And Greg, I mean, to me, the only way I could even possibly kind of figure this all out is some kind of a mini Excel table that would have columns with the tax rate increase, right? So there'd be a 2.5% and then a 3.5 and a, you know, right? And so there'd be columns with the different tax rate increases, and then the rows would be, okay, if it's 2.5, then you can spend X on CapEx. If it's 3.5, you can spend Y on CapEx, you know, so that way you can see.
But we also have to determine the amount of the bonding we want to incur, because that fits in
Right.
to the equation.
Agreed,
That's-
agreed, but it's either part of the same table or a separate table, I don't know, you know, but you like, to try to figure this out, just, I don't know. Maybe everybody else has got to figure it out, but I don't.
I think we have to look at the capital item budget and say, what do we think we can live without? Instead of just coming up with a gross number, I think we need to look at the things and say, okay, are there things that maybe could be eliminated?
I agree, I just think that's a second level decision, but yes, so I agree.
I'm confused, because we've met with each of the departments to
Right.
talk about these capital items,
Right.
so I don't understand how we're now reconsidering them without those people here.
Well, we met all summer,
I know, but you're introducing an idea that's challenging the idea that the water things need to get lined, and I don't have enough, none of us has the information to either.
The short answer is you're correct, you are
Yeah.
correct, but the long answer is, I think, we got hit in the stomach with the feasibility map, right? That wasn't there 6 months ago, is that fair?
Yeah, but that's $600,000. Right.
It's not 200, it's 660,000.
No, so we just increase local receipt by two.
Okay. So it's
But
still
we
460.
also are reducing
So,
the PFAS by 900,000. Because the grant,
Okay, on that one, sorry.
so the PFAS design is in here. Water plant upgrades, PFAS design, I don't know what the water plant upgrades were, but that's 2 million. And Greg's saying the actual cost is 1.8.
what we have, we're using, well, it's 1.85, but we're using 150 in one of the.
Okay, 1.85, and then we're getting almost 900,000 from the government for PFAS. So that can be, so this item can be reduced by the 900,000 that we're getting in revenue.
Right, so,
So here's my one.
Yeah.
The original budget anticipated borrowing 9.25. And it was broken out into basically 3 elements, the sewer plant upgrades, PFAS work, for PFAS work, the water line, and the water meters. So, with the grant coming through, 950,000. And by going in-house on the clerk of the works, OPM, I was taking out 1.5, at 1.4 from the 9.25. I was reducing the amount of borrowing by 1.4 to that 7.8. If I'm, again, from sort of a high level, every percent tax increase, every point of the tax rate. Roughly 300,000, which is roughly 3 million. That's rough, easy numbers, but it's a little, not exact, but it's close enough for your high level.
That's not in year,
So,
it's not in year one.
not in year one, correct. I would wait a couple of years, do bands as we need them,
Correct.
and then bond.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around, like if I said 2.5% increase, that's it, right? What does that mean in terms of what can be spent, you know, on CapEx versus if the answer is 4.5 or 3.5, right? Like the different rate increases determines different amounts of CapEx that can be spent, right?
Right, so basically, the answer to your question is we would not do the bond.
We would not do what
We would not bond that 7.8 million
if
if you don't want to go higher than 2.5%.
we would not do any of the bond. We wouldn't. Seems counterintuitive. If we go to the lower tax rate, we're not gonna borrow. I don't understand.
Give me a.
That goes the other way, right?
If you would have if you want to keep the tax rate increased by 2.5% only,
Yeah, great. You gotta borrow more, right?
To bond more?
you would just wouldn't bond at all.
You wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't do the bond, I would scrapping it all.
You wouldn't do the work.
I wouldn't do the
Thank you.
work.
Okay,
I would say, we can't afford to do the work if you don't bond.
So what I was saying,
Okay, we're gonna,
It was not a high tax increase. It was,
I'm confused.
because if you borrow money, it ends up paying on the tax rate.
Yes,
So effectively.
yes. You're incurring debt service that eventually would be on the tax.
But, okay, go with your debt amount, 7.8. Right? What's the annual interest on that? Cause that's the amount that needs to be covered on the operating side.
But it's roughly 100,000 per million. So
about 700,000.
you got just under $800,000 in your expense. That's a little on the high side, but it's a bad number.
Which 3%.
Wait, what? You're saying 100,000 per million? That's crazy. I just picked 4% as an interest rate, because that's about where the market is on units. So 4% on 8 million is 320 grand a year in interest.
How many years you
How many do you want? You want to go 10? It's that number times 10. You want 20? It's that number times 20.
know? The longer I borrow, the lower my payments.
I'm sorry? The longer you borrow,
Lower,
My lower my annual payments.
because we gotta pay principal back too.
So we're doing principal and interest here, right?
okay, I mean, we're getting into like second level analysis, but I mean, just interest cost on an $8 million bond is 320 grand a year.
Interest and principal, I have to pay.
Okay, I mean, I'm not sure I can do this math like here, but it's not gonna jack it up to 100 grand per million.
Okay, use 80. It's gonna be 80 grand a year.
I mean, that
Yeah,
seems like
you
you're
wanna
paying
say
it back in
something?
like 3 years.
Okay, hold on. Kathy.
I'm just, as an observer here, what I think I heard, might be a helpful tool is a dashboard. Okay, so you've done a lot of puts and takes and you're trying to figure out, you know, for a tax rate, you know, how much, what might it look like to stay in the 2.5%, or if you had to go a little higher. I think what's missing, you know, you've got a lot of great detail, Greg, but if you had a dashboard, I think this conversation would go a lot.
That's a
faster.
great idea, but we've run out of time.
No, I'm just saying.
I mean, I'm sorry,
Yes,
but we have to get closure.
I understand.
We can't be rehashing everything 20 times during the budget season. And, you know,
I just didn't know if, because you have tools that are not visible here, if there's something, you know, available. Maybe
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Pictures, I don't like pictures.
Not pictures. Dashboard.
No,
My feeling is that we're gonna have some big bonds coming between Essex Elementary and the DPW facility. And that if we can avoid doing a bond this year.
But
I
the-
think we'll-
then what, I mean, we've
What are you gonna
said
do?
many times,
How to do the sewer.
we wanted the sewer plant
Yes,
operated.
absolutely, that, I haven't touched that.
That
I agree.
requires a bond.
That requires a bond.
We don't have enough money to pay for $4.1 million. $4.1 million, wait a minute. The tax increase of 13.7%. I don't think,
But we had been spending 3 million a year in water, and we had 1 million in reserves in the enterprise fund. That was the
That's
4 million
gone.
right there.
that's gone. I told you a little while ago what the reserve is in the enterprise, and it's 600,000.
Well, can I go back to your comment where if I said 2.5%, you said like, that's it, we're not doing anything, we're not, right? But I thought one of the strategies when you issue a bond is you have a debt exclusion, right? So like you could have the regular tax rate, stay at 2.5%.
Correct, it would be a debt exclusion, but it's still gonna hit your pocketbook. It's still gonna be a 4.5% out of your pocket.
Right, but I think we need to talk about the two things separately, right?
Oh, that is fine. I was merging the two.
Okay, that. I didn't like that just because it made me think that the regular tax rate was gonna go up 4 or 5. Or
I think the regular tax rate needs to go up more than 2.5%.
I don't.
I think that with all of our excess levy capacity, if we hadn't kept the tax rates as low as we did during COVID, they would be up there now.
Yeah, and for what?
And I don't think even a 5% tax rate is unreasonable if it's $500 a year for a median home value.
I think that's crazy.
$500 is not that
Well,
much.
So just my thinking here, from what I presented to you in the letter, was you would do the debt exclusion, capital exclusion for the feasibility study. And that roughly same amount would then continue, no longer for feasibility study, but then we would start paying for this $8 million rounded off new debt.
But that's a 2%
Correct.
increase, so that brings the tax rate to 4.5%. Increase to 4.
That's what I was trying to say. But that would continue, it wouldn't increase, but that amount of people's pocketbooks would be relatively stable as you went forward. Now, it's going to increase, depending on the timing of that Essex one. Again, I still hope that we could bear until the close to the high school peeling off, so that one would offset the other. But you do have the big PFAS. That's the wild card that we weren't anticipating in terms of projecting.
But that slash capital thing we just talked about, I mean, it would have an end, right?
Yeah, yes,
It's just that you're saying it starts out as a capital exclusion. Then it kind of converts to a debt exclusion to pay for the bonds,
yes.
but then it ends when the bonds mature.
Are retired, yes.
And-
But there'll
and-
be other bonds coming along the way. There'll be other projects that you have to decide on.
Right, but wouldn't that debt,
It'll gradually decline.
no, but I'm saying, wouldn't it get tied to the specific bond that we would?
Yes.
Right,
Yes,
so just, I'm trying to keep things as simple as possible, so I'm just saying, that specific debt exclusion would expire, mature when these specific bonds, call it the 8 million, mature.
correct.
I know there's gonna be other bond, I don't wanna confuse it though,
Yep.
just to keep it simple.
Yep.
So getting back to what I was talking about with the design,
Design of what?
the PFAS, at Gravelly Pond. I'm all on board with expediting the PFAS at Lincoln Street, we're over the limit, everything's good. I think we could defer the Gravelly Pond design work. I think we wanna learn lessons from
I
the
don't,
construction of Lincoln Street before we spend money on Gravelly Pond. It's not even over the limit,
I don't think that's our decision.
right? Okay.
Our decision is a financial decision. It's not to tell the town what they can and cannot do, and if it's more efficient to design everything together, then that makes sense.
I think it's
We don't
more
have that
efficient
info.
to wait, to learn lessons learned. They're also coming up with new technology now where you can boil the water and there's a lot of factors, but I don't see why we have to rush to spend all that money on the heat. I think,
What happens, Greg, if we just spend the $900,000 grant? It's in fiscal year 25.
I'd have to sit down and check to see how much that would cover what we had planned.
again, it was,
We're expecting the EPA ruling any day.
Yeah, but we've been hearing that for a long time. I mean,
No, we haven't. It was projected to come out in March, and here it is in March. So,
What happens on the debt exclusion, right? If we all vote it, everybody approves it, and the town starts collecting it,
they don't collect it until they issue the bonds.
answer my question.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Answer the question.
Yeah, we-
I'm gonna ask, like, because, right, it sounds like there's a lot of variability there. We might
Correct.
issue bond here, we might issue there, we might do the short term, I don't know the name, the short term.
Bands.
The bands, you know.
Right.
bond anticipation.
So the debt exclusion does not really hit the tax rate in fiscal year 25.
Because we, just to follow that through, because we don't anticipate actually
Issuing the bond.
issuing the bonds.
Yeah.
It always hits a year later anyways, even when you do issue the debt.
So that again,
Your first payment is until a year later after you issue it.
yeah. But I'm thinking more when we would start, the town would start collecting it as soon as the bond is issued, I assume, right?
Well,
No, when we have to make the
we wait
payment.
the following fiscal.
It's debt
Really?
service, which is the
We're
first.
going to
item.
debt service. We can't advance collect.
Cool.
The school can, but we can't.
So basically, for fiscal 2025, this debt exclusion thing, it's like there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
And then most likely it kicks in fiscal 26. But even then, that's like when the bond gets issued.
Right,
So
so
then-
it really won't hit until 27.
Which may be when we have more tax revenue from sales income.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
So the debt service that we started talking about this evening, our first vote, is when we'll see this show up.
But the first payment
Right.
we have to make.
And it's probably not gonna be next fiscal year, it'll probably be the year after. But we have to budget it.
This is all the more why I don't wanna talk about 4% and 5%, because it's commingling things that really do need to be discussed separately, in my opinion. It needs to be like, there's the property tax rate and there's the debt thing, because they're two, and
But the capital exclusion increases the tax rate.
Yes.
right. So that gets it going, right? I don't know.
Right. For fiscal year 25.
Yes.
Is it, and is that mostly because of the 660?
Yes.
Which, by the way, you know, if that goes down to 1.2, the 660 goes down to
550.
550.
And if you want to use 200 of your extra
Right,
revenue.
subtract 200 down to 350. We just pull another 350 out of free cash.
Right, well, the estimate of 200, as you said, and I agree, is probably very conservative,
Very concerned.
because it's probably gonna be.
It's been 800 to $1 million.
Right? Realistically. And it's gonna be,
Well,
but we still have to.
no, at 3.3. Anticipated receipts, maybe we've got 200,000 extra revenue. And if you add that to the 400 and under expenditures, you got 60. So. But your capital going forward assumed you had at least 400 to 600 every year in free cash to spend. So
Right.
that changes that outlook going forward.
Look, something needs to be clear. No matter what we use for estimates or budgets and forecasts, the amount of cash we have to spend is just based on how much cash is in the door. That's a simple fact,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We could forecast 20 million in revenue, but 40 comes in. That's how much you got, right? I mean, you know, so. Nobody's got a money tree. No one is creating cash or sales or revenue or thing. It's just, it's timing. It's timing and markets. That's all it comes down to.
But my point is that if we go very close or below that 8% target, then we will have maybe 400 a year for the.
No, it's just timing. It's like, we could spend it now, or we could spend it later, right? That's the choice. And so if we do what I just said, if you go to 1.2, right, instead of 1.5, and that changes the 660 to 560.
Yeah.
And then you subtract the 200 with the revenue, right? So
At 350.
if we pull an extra 350 out now, it just means it's 350 that we don't have to spend a year for, which is obviously very logical, right? Or the reverse is true. If you didn't pull the 350 out now, then you have 350 to spend a year for. I mean, it's just kind of.
But we were counting on that 350 for something else. That's the difference.
Not if you assume that maintaining that 8% target. I mean, like, in other words, this is one of the many reasons I wanted to go down from 10 to 8, because whatever that number is, whether it's 8 or 10 or 12, it's like that's a certain amount of cash that just sits there. It doesn't do anything other than earn interest. We could this year. You know, like it's just a base. It's like a base amount. It's almost like it's an escrow account. No, it's not, but you know what I mean? It's just like this base amount that just sits there. So
You could decide to go to zero. That is a choice.
and we're not suggesting, I'm just suggesting if you run the numbers, maybe I'd be totally in favor of pulling an extra 350 out, even if that meant, you know, we might hit 7.2% instead of 8. You know?
I'm not willing to go down.
Yeah.
What below 8%, we just changed our target from 10 to 8, and I don't think then we should automatically be going below that.
Except for the fact that there's an extra million that I know is gonna go in because of all the
This
forecasts.
is
You know what I mean?
necessarily gonna be $1 million this year, we tightened things up, the revenue estimates for
It's
fiscal year
800 to 1 million, 800 to 1 million per year over the past 5-6 years.
But Mike, that assumed 500 in excess revenue, and you just reduced that to maybe 200.
I took the 800 to 1 million and I sliced 200 off. So there's still 600 to 800.
I think that you're overestimating the excess expenses. I think we have, I think we've been tightening up on the expenses in the budget, and so we don't have as much excess as we used to.
That's the problem. We're not tightening up on expenses. Every time we get into one of these $50,000, it's like, do you really want to die in that hill? And I'm like, no, I don't want to die in that hill, but it's 50 grand here, it's 20 grand there, it's 30 grand. And guess what? It adds up to the 800 to $1 million. So that would be my recommendation is, you know, slice the 1.5 to 1.2. And then, you know, if you had to pull out an extra 350, now you're not dealing with any capital exclusion. You know, you got the debt one that's gonna hit a year or two down the road, but
It's not clear to me where these numbers are coming from, exactly what we're talking about from each fund and from the revenues. Where's OPEB coming from? We voted,
OPEB is taxation. We did that this year, and it continues.
that's not what
forward.
we voted on. We voted on spending 500,000 for OPEB from stabilization. That's what we,
An extra 500, and I
no,
indicated,
we,
you said 500 plus the 300.
no, the last meeting, we said just 500 from stabilization. We weren't doing both at the last meeting when we talked about it.
That was not my understanding.
The original vote did it because you suggested we up it. My original suggestion was we pay 500,000 from stabilization for OPEB, which would be the entire contribution for the year. And then the votes went south, and then we talked about it at the last meeting. We were talking about reconsidering the OPEB vote and have 500,000 from stabilization, but we didn't talk about the extra 300,000. So we were increasing the contribution from 300 to 500, but paying it from stabilization, not taxation, because we thought we could make that sale. That was a logical way to reduce the amount of the stabilization. because of the higher earnings we get from the OPEB.
I've totally misunderstood, because I thought your whole point was to take money out of stabilization, which was not earning high interest, and putting it into OPEB, which does have a longer term horizon, that
Right.
earns more.
Because the theory is we could justify that from stabilization, but we never were saying, I never intended that we would do both of them.
So it's the 300 still in the budget.
Yes,
I'm lost. What,
300,000 is in the original budget from taxation to pay our annual
Yeah.
OPEB obligation.
we approve that?
No, we didn't. We approved, in votes that went south, we approved 800,000 from stabilization and 300,000 from taxation. I don't think we ever intended, I think that maybe we thought that was gonna be an or vote. I don't know, but it went south.
So we need to revote.
We need to revote it once we figure out what we're doing.
So can we go back to capital and I just wanna say that for the capital, I'm totally in on any conversation where we say that, the number is just too big. But I don't wanna just arbitrarily now start saying that this project shouldn't be done, or that's too much of money, or whatever. We can decide what the bottom line is. I think that's reasonable. And if it affects, a certain department like Public Works, I think we ought to hear back from them in terms of what that means.
I think that's a good way to think about it. Yeah, it's like there's a CapEx number.
Yeah.
Right, we're not gonna jump into the,
But we still didn't get the numbers I asked for, Greg, which was for a breakdown of where all of the revenues were going to which items.
I can tell you that.
Because this
Answer the question, I'll answer the question.
doesn't have the warrant articles in it. You're giving me generals in this, generalities, but I don't see where all the numbers fit together. That's my problem.
So if you look at page 195,
Yes, that's just. It doesn't include OPEB, it doesn't include any other, it doesn't include feasibility, it doesn't include any other warrant article that has money attached to it.
it's the one. We asked for.
Well, we asked for this before. We talked about the ambulance and we felt that there was sufficient money left over, that it didn't need to all come out of this. You've got 470,000.
There's 31,000, there was 1.5.
We spent 1.1 on the ladder truck. No, but we had the 400,000 appropriated for an ambulance that we didn't spend. We appropriated that last November. We didn't spend it. And now we have the ambulance back in, so we should have that appropriation from last November available. Why not?
You rescinded the vote for the ambulance. And in its place, you voted 1.5. 180 was from
The sale of the,
free cash, and the rest was from the 1.32 was from the engine fund, including the 400. So you rescinded the 400.
but we had 1.4 in the,
0.22, including the 400. Because then you took the 62,000, like 65,000.
for the
For the SUV.
SUV, yeah.
Yeah.
But we need these numbers. I can't vote on any of this capital without having these details because the numbers keep changing. And we don't have the breakdown of everything.
Yep.
And that's what I asked for tonight, so we could vote on the capital.
The numbers on 195, they show you where the revenue. Doesn't show it broken out line by line or item by item, but it shows you the revenues.
Just for capital.
It's for capital, that's right.
In the comments.
where?
If you look on page 195,
Yep, I am.
At the bottom, it shows revenues, so it's 210,000, 2.1 million in general taxation. So it's 550,000 in fund balance. So it's chapter 90 monies, it shows the water fund, the sewer fund, harbor funds. Shows the bonds. Now, that bond number can obviously come down. And we were going to increase the fund balance by 250 because that's the additional amount that's needed in for the masonry. That's what I explained in the memo to you.
Right, but we still have this OPEB issue.
The OPEB
And
is
if it's
excluded
coming out-
of taxation.
That's not what we've assumed.
I understand that now, but that's not was my understanding when you took that vote.
And so if 500,000 is coming out of OPEB, out of stabilization, how does that impact breakdown of these numbers with respect to taxation and coming out of the fund balance? That has to have an impact.
You free up 300,000 in taxation
Right?
that you could add to this amount here and reduce your bonding by that. But we're starting to double dip in the fund balance.
Which is why I wanted to see the numbers. I'm sorry, I asked for the breakdown of where all of the funding was coming from and where it was going.
So sit
So
down
we
with me ahead of the meeting to make sure you got what you need.
I'm trying to understand the timing, like. When I look at the revenue, the funding, I get general fund, right, because that's taxation, right? I get fund balance, but the bond. How can that 9.25 or whatever the number ends up being, be in fiscal 2025 if we don't actually envision?
We have to
issue?
appropriate it so they can spend it, but then the bond doesn't actually come due until future fiscal. It's like when we had the Memorial Elementary School, where I think last year we had the final bond. And so it increased our tax rate because we'd appropriated it many years ago, but the final bond was issued and the payments were.
If I'm just thinking in a cash world, right, like. That fund balance, 549, 600, that's cash getting. Pulled from free cash in fiscal 2025 and then spent on something above, right? And same with general fund taxes, right? So like. Everything other than the bond cap is like cash. The cash action's gonna happen in fiscal 2025, is that right?
Yes.
The bond, whatever that number, 9.25, 8, whatever. That's just getting appropriated or budgeted, but it's a non-cash event for fiscal 2025.
But I'm showing it as a cash event in theory, because I'm showing that expense above. That's why I'm I have to balance it out. So I'm showing that 9.25 million being spent, right? Itemized above, 4.1 for the sewer. But we know that in reality, it's not all going to be spent in 25.
It's an authorization.
It's
It's an
an authorization,
authorization.
it'll get spent over many budget years.
But to state the obvious, then if that bond doesn't get issued in fiscal 2025, which we don't think it will, then obviously we're not gonna be spending 12.769 million.
That's right.
Right.
But we're authorizing
You won't be spending some.
Like if I call the bond 8 million, just pick a number, it's almost like. Subtract 8 million, right? It'll be 4.769
So another way.
in fiscal 2025.
Yes.
Mike, if you took pick your color, an orange highlighter, and you highlighted the 9.25, and then you went up above and you highlighted the various items that contribute to the 9.25, and said everything highlighted in orange is probably not going to be spent or funded in fiscal year 25. It may get doled out over the next 6 years. That's what we're kind of looking at. And then all the other stuff that's not highlighted theoretically will get spent within the next fiscal year or two. Kind of what's.
I get that, it's just to use your color thing, right, the orange stuff to me conceptually should. Go to 26 or 26.
That's why
It's
you
gotta
had the
be
30,
allocated
that's why you
for
had the
the-
30,000 in the debt service section of interest, so that the projects would begin but it will be paid with short-term interest instead of issuing the actual. And the bond would be issued when the projects were presumably completed.
It's a commitment to do it.
Okay, so to say it a different way, the 8 million bonds, there's gonna be some of that 8 million. Through bond anticipation notes that will get borrowed in fiscal 2025.
Some of it.
Some of it.
Well, yes.
We're anticipating to incur about 30,000.
Those are just the fees for the banks. Issuance costs, basically.
Why with the water and sewer funds cut so much? Was there,
Let's spend them.
is there was spent?
So the previous year, we were using a much higher portion of
Right.
the fund now.
Yes. Oh, okay, that's why.
So does this want to be for the information that you're looking for? No use spinning the wheels on.
No, there's no use spinning our wheels, but we need to, in order for Andrea to come up with numbers, she needs to have the specifics. Or else we're just gonna be going around in circles again.
And to me, for some kind of table, or that just illuminates the choices, you know, if like a 2.5% property tax rate combined with I'm making this all up, obviously, 2% capital exclusion, that allows you to do X, Y, and Z. But if you did, like, right, I mean, we have choices, right? And I'm just trying to understand. Like, I don't even know I don't know what we're choosing between.
Well, I don't know.
You're choosing from the list of items on page 195. That's what it's coming down to. Plus the feasibility study. And then I listed some other needs for fund balance in terms of this year's shortfall.
I have a question on the launch service. If we're expecting, if we were to implement it this year, and we're expecting the annual fees to be collected in advance of starting the launch service, wouldn't we have revenue to offset that staffing cost?
Yes.
Okay.
More, we've got a time issue because all that revenue, most of that revenue is gonna come in this fiscal year.
Right.
You know, the expenses will be,
But the expenses in 25 will be less, if you will, more paid for part of 24.
a small portion.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
none of
I understand.
that-
It's still a portion.
10 to 12 quarter.
But that's not included in these numbers.
Right, that's not.
It's not included as a revenue source?
No, the cost of the launch service isn't included.
Yes, it is. It's the demo.
It's not in the capital.
Right.
It's not, yeah, not big.
Right. What, the
Presumably
125
the 200 or the
This book was put in
The purchase
December,
price.
right?
I know, and it would be really nice if we had more contemporaneous updates to it. It's very difficult to work with something that's so old and not get the updates on a weekly basis. It just, I find it difficult, maybe other
We
people
can give you
do.
all access to the SharePoint, and that has the master spreadsheet, but that is updated. So
There we go.
but it's,
There's another.
it was another, you know, it's not like the master Excel spreadsheet is probably the easiest way to do it.
Sure.
Because
Whereas, but that's not
Bring it down
anything we
like-
have access to, Andrea's.
Videos.
Okay, that would be nice, yeah. Every so often I have Andrea send it to me.
Right.
It'd be nice to have access.
I'm just literally trying to understand at a very high level what, I know, obviously we know we have choices, we always have choices, but what are the choices? Is there A, B, C, D, and like A is spends, you know, X amount in capital with a 2.5%, 2% capital exclusion, and D is 3% tax rate increase with a, you know, like, I mean, and obviously there's an infinite amount of variability, but like, I think you need to give us 4, I don't know, 5, you know what I mean? Like pick A, B, C, D, or E, you know, like, and A means this and B means that, and you know what I'm saying?
We tried to do that in zero. It's there.
But I think part of that is for us to sort of say, if this isn't the number we want to support, what is a number that we want to support?
Correct.
So maybe that's a conversation, so we understand what the implications are. But, that's my background.
Right, I thought people were on board with basic capital expenditures presented. Plus the new bond. And the real issue was, could we draw down the bond amount by
Yeah.
applying for fund balance?
I would agree with that. I think
And
that-
Yeah.
So, all the new information.
And then I gave you the news ago, that we have other needs for the fund balance.
Right, I agree with that, that in theory, we had a discussion about this capital and supported it. Nobody had issue, I mean, that was the discussion we had.
But obviously,
So we asked to have the numbers come back, assuming this capital.
So,
right.
But then we got the feasibility study and then we've got and it's not clear to me, you know, I mean, based on this information, we weren't using all of the free cash. In
Prior to
this
this.
original,
Correct.
in the original thing, which is one of the reasons we picked 500,000 for the OPEB.
I see in your point 3, you have parentheses at the end, it says you could use some excess levy capacity instead of free cash, depending upon how, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously, I understand that at a high level, but I don't understand, like, I need to be like told, okay, choice A, yeah, like, you know, A is this, B is this, C, you know, I mean, and, you know, as you might imagine, my choice is gonna be maximize using free cash and not use the excess levy. But I think for us to all make a decision, we just need to see the ABCD or whatever.
So what would be helpful for me is how low on fund balance do you wanna go?
I don't wanna go below 8%.
That's a good number for, yeah, I mean, we picked 8%, but like.
Right, I think we should go down to 8%.
But I think we're fixing on that, we're fixed from.
And even if that impacts us next year, I think we've been talking about getting down to our target. We haven't been going down to it. And I think now this year is the time to get down to our 8% target. And fiscal year 26, we'll see how much we have over 8% to spend.
So it would be we apply the 1.4 excess to capital needs per letter, and would be that the 8%.
And the OPEB,
Yeah, yes, I understand, that's
I
not,
mean,
but that, I think that's a good starting point for this conversation, which is we want to get the 8%, therefore we want to apply this year the full 1.4. Now the question is how to apply it. I know that's what.
and we also had agreed at a prior meeting, saying we supported an increase in the tax rate to 3%. I mean, that was the parameters we set to have these numbers redone.
Yeah, I wasn't here, so.
Right.
Well,
But that doesn't mean we can't go higher than 3% if it makes sense, because I think that you have to look at the fact that if we didn't have the excess levy capacity, we'd be up there today.
Ask Greg to apply those assumptions you just made. Adding in the additional items that have come about subsequently. Piece of paper that we're gonna be able to see or.
Well, we need to understand what the reserves are, what the reserves are being spent on.
Yeah,
So
but we made,
I didn't do it in spreadsheet form, but item 3 in my memo outlines the expenditure for that 1.4 million.
So I feel like we're beating a dead horse here for the evening.
I'm happy to give it in a different presentation to make it easy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, is there? What's the follow-up?
We need numbers we can understand regarding exactly what the tax rate increase is going to be, what the spend down on reserves is going to be.
Okay, so it sounds like there needs to be a little bit of back and forth of leading up to next week. So that we can, you know, if it's an iterative process, let's engage in that.
I'm reading your number 3, right? The total 4.7 is to account for 8%. Is a 3.36 million target, right? Meaning there's 1.34 million we can use fiscal 2025. And then you start, however, using this full amount will mean, like why wouldn't we? Because if we're targeting 8, then the math would show we definitely want to use 1.34, right?
Just, yeah, I agree.
Okay, so assuming.
But you won't have 1.3 to use in 26 for your budget.
No, don't go there, don't go there. The point is, if we're targeting 8%, very simple fact, we're targeting 8%,
That's fine.
then, right?
Yeah.
It's very, keep it black and white. If we're targeting 8%, that means 3.36 million target, which means there's 1.34 million to use in free cash,
Correct.
which we will use so that we do hit the 8%.
Correct.
That's black and white.
That is.
Okay, so, okay. And then you say we're currently projecting using 1.39, which is just about 1.34, right? So.
Yep.
Let's call it the same number.
Yep.
Okay. So there's the pullout from free cash to get us down to 8%. Here's the stuff we're gonna use it on. So
That's what.
what's the question? Like what?
I think we've already, have we not agreed that we want the information in a different format?
Yeah, I was just trying to give another stab at looking at
I get
the
it,
email in 3 and try,
But
I can't,
I don't think we're gonna get there.
Okay.
So let's just. It's 10 of 10.
I was in error. I thought it was an extra 500 in OPEB. Because I already have 300 in taxation.
So we have the 300 in taxation to be applied
Yeah.
elsewhere.
But no, because you don't have the 500. Because I used the 500.
We have to agree on what the use of the amount we're pulling out of stabilization and reserve. If it's something different than what.
I'm saying there's 1.34 to pull out.
Right, I
Out of
understand.
the 2 buckets.
And then we have,
And I wasn't using it for OPEB at all.
I understand that too.
So that's a difference, right?
we have an additional 200 in revenue and the 300
That's
in
right,
taxation that
that's right.
you have for OPEB, and we're saying 500 should be.
I mean. Obviously, there's tons of moving pieces, but like, I don't think we should be handcuffed to that OPEB now that we got the money we gotta spend on the school thing. You know, like, in other words, I was with you. I actually did assume, like you said, where you said, I am assuming we rescind your previous record. I understood that to be true. I actually was on that page.
We don't have to be handcuffed. Let's apply though. Excess from the reserves, as he suggests.
And we still have to determine which projects are going to come out of stabilization. Because that's a harder vote in the mindset of the people.
Which is,
That's one of the things we had discussed months ago.
to confirm on OPEB, there's this 300 versus 500 differential. Is that fair to say? Like you were thinking it was gonna be 300 on OPEB.
No, he was thinking 800.
You were thinking 800.
300 taxation and the 500 we had voted from
Exactly, yeah.
stabilization.
And then,
We'd actually-
then-
You're putting an extra 500 to get ahead of OPEB.
right, I mean, 4 months ago, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever it was. But then logically, you assume, given all this new stuff.
That was my thought.
Ixnay, yeah, no,
That was my thought.
and I agree with that. I think that makes.
Contrary to the email I sent. Just to make it clear, I made it clear that in the email.
Well, so stuff has changed. And
Does it make sense for you and Greg to get together during the week? Maybe work out the.
I need to see numbers. I'm sorry. I can't deal with,
Again, I will.
this I saw at 4:30 in the afternoon.
I understand. I should, that would be yesterday.
I was
It's my fault.
doing Manchester Affordable Housing Trust financial transactions at the bank.
think the other thing that would be helpful is having, minutes from our meetings. And I know it's being really generous, but, you know, we have minutes. Later, whatever, we on top of stuff.
It's making it
It's
very
hard.
difficult.
So that we're sent out the minutes that were sent out.
Like, yeah. 118, 131.
That's it's first.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we're gonna meet on Thursday, March 21st.
Minutes that were distributed today, so we can close that gap.
Does somebody have a motion to approve the minutes from January 18th?
The meeting of I think 118 and 130.
31 as,
One, Rob?
as amended,
I'll make that motion.
second,
Second.
ready to vote? Dean,
Yes.
Maura,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Mike,
abstain.
Tom. So,
February.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second,
all in favor? Thank you.
so we're meeting towards the next week, 21st.
Yeah. If we can get a room, I don't know whether I have a room or not. I know the MBTA passport says meeting. Because you're not ready to make the presentation, you can probably hold the phone. There's a meeting time. But it's. Every meeting we have on it, somebody comes up with an option. And they send them to Emily and she's got about 5 different people sending her stuff and none of them come back and what we really want. It's difficult.